Welcome to the Division 2. The ladder bugs. Getting stuck on terrain. Teleporting NPCs. Unfinished modelling. Finely polished microtransactions. Shitty servers. Delta errors. Yep, it's a Division game alright, and the apple did not fall far from the tree. Spoiler alert, this video contains major spoilers. Before we snap on our latex gloves and apron and get balls deep into this autopsy of the Division 2, I guess I had better explain my lack of qualifications. I have over 1,000 hours played in the Division 1. I'm a fairly average player who primarily plays PvE on PC. I have covered the Division franchise in detail for over 2 years. I am widely hated for my views and opinions. Truth hurts, I guess. The Ubisoft community management team threatened to live ban me from the official forums the same week that the supposedly independent Division subreddit did ban my videos and started banning people who posted them. Many people in the community hate my guts, and large sections of the Division content creating community are paid to hate my guts. I'm not winning any popularity contests here, but I do have a little bit more first-hand experience of the Division franchise than some people. I have over 100 hours played in the Division 2. I have soloed the game with a pistol until my eyes were bleeding. I've reached World Tier 4. I can hit 450 gear score with only one rifle equipped. I have pretty much done everything in PvE apart from challenging level missions. I've also opted out of the cosmetic microtransaction system, so I only wear vanilla items from the character creation screen. Many people have asked why the fuck anyone would be so masochistic as to solo the whole game armed just with a pistol. Well, 2 reasons. Firstly, the appalling in-game script kept referring to me as the new sheriff in town during the beta, and secondly, as a dirty protest about the fucking appallingly unrealistic and Harry Potter-esque gun balancing in this franchise. So I decided to arm myself only with a handgun and go full mutton chops. Never go full mutton chops. So if at any point you're wondering why I'm wearing the grey sackcloth robes of a pauper non-premium player, only using a handgun and sporting a slightly creepy and awkward face stash that only Lemmy could ever successfully pull off, that was all your answers at once. Right there. So how can we best describe the Division 2? First and foremost, it's the unfinished and still broken sequel to its predecessor, the Division 1, which to this day is still considered by many to be unfinished and still broken itself. I frequently liken the Division 1 to a junky supermodel. Basically, a balance of profound beauty and full-blown nightmare. The Division 2 is a looter-shooter, or cover-based shooter, or cover-based looter-shooter, depending on which developer or community manager you speak to and whether or not any of them have actually played the game. Sometimes, late at night, drunk or stoned, people refer to it as an MMO or RPG, and there is some truth in all of these classifications. The basic core mechanics and design structure of the game is the same as the previous title, only now it's set in Washington DC during the summer instead of New York City in winter. Washington DC is visually recreated as a post-apocalyptic nightmare with incredible accuracy. The streets are full of bodies, debris, rubbish, dilapidated tents and makeshift shelters. It's a shithole basically. It's just like the real Washington DC. The basic premise is that a bioterrorist created plague has wrought devastation on the global population, resulting in social collapse. The city is in a state of anarchy. Well, I say anarchy, but frankly I think all the different factions fighting for control of the city seem pretty well organised. I mean, they all have their own identical uniforms, ranks, weapons and tactics. That looks pretty fucking organised to me. In fact, considering that every crossroads has a regular supply of red explosive oil drums and jerry cans of petrol delivered almost hourly, every chain link door is neatly re-secured with a yellow bicycle lock every day, and a little army of invisible elves keep going around refilling all the boxes and backpacks with junk constantly, overall, I would say the whole city is running more efficiently than it does in real life. You play the role of a division agent. You are basically a sleeper agent, activated because of the complete breakdown of government control, and because it's a nice little fantasy really, isn't it? Your job is to run around Washington DC, killing everyone who isn't on your side and stealing all their loot. Exactly like the bad guys basically, only you have special extrajudicial powers and a little glowing sheriff's badge, so it must be legit, right? That's civilization right there. You have official looking documentation, so you can go around murdering people and taking their stuff, and it's okay when you do it because that's the law. You are responsible for helping out the small army of hipster capri pants wearing idiots, displaced out of work baristas and organic vegan farmers. They infest the streets of Washington DC like fucking rats, only being much more annoying. Because they speak, and when words come out, they say stupid things. You run around Washington, doing missions, liberating control points, advancing your way through the world tiers, and then basically it all gets taken away from you, and you have to start the process all over again, because game design. At times it's very satisfying, at other times it feels about as futile as trying to walk up a down escalator. The loot mechanics are basically like the Division 1, only with more complexity and greater quantity. Loot relentlessly shits at you from the sky, sometimes to the point where you just start randomly deleting stuff to free up some bag space. This time around they have used the Borderlands system of gear branding. You can now mod skills, and the mods are drops too. Anyone familiar with the Division 1 will get to grips with the loot system intuitively. And even if you don't, it doesn't matter, because more loot will drop in a few minutes anyway, if you've ended the wrong stuff. Unless of course you want pistols, in which case you're fucked, because the loot tables are broke. The Division 2 has evolved a lot of existing ideas from the franchise, and in many ways it's visually appealing, clearly got a lot of good ideas, nicely done design work, and paints a visually beautiful and finely crafted vision of a slightly unfinished Washington DC environment, full of tripping hazards and invisible barriers. Creatively, the game is heavily influenced by many sources, and in other cases has concepts directly lifted from other creative entities. These include Fallout 3, Fallout 4, I Am Legend, Omega Man, Independence Day, Escape from New York, Walking Dead, Borderlands, The Last of Us, and of course, Harry Potter. Hell, there's even a bit of Tom Clancy in there too. Just kidding, there ain't no Tom Clancy in this Division. Tom Clancy wrote stories. You ain't going to be finding no story in the Division 2. There's just a premise and a couple of audio tapes, which nobody gives a fuck about. Look, what can I say? It's basically the Division 1, only it's summer and not winter. It's Washington and not New York. The loot system is more complicated. The open world structure is more dynamic and sophisticated. It's just as fucking broken and even more buggy. For many players, including myself, it runs badly, and I mean it runs like a fucked cat. The game is not finished, and I mean day one content is missing from the game, and it is absolutely jam fucking packed with loot crates, pedo caches, gambling mechanics, and in-game purchases. Oh, and as far as the story in the Division 2 goes, well, I must have missed it. I knew what was going on because I played the first game. There was a virus, so you kill everyone and take their shiny loots. Rinse and fucking repeat. If anyone found any story of substance beyond that, then please let me know. Because story-wise, in the Division 2, I didn't find shit. Well, you know me. I like to keep things positive. I'm a mass grave half full kind of guy. So let's hit the good points first, because, believe me, there are a lot of good points about this game. So let's read out the laundry list of positives. They ported over the settings from the Division 2 beta, so I didn't need to reconfigure at launch, which was a nice touch. Although it's a shame they didn't port over our cosmetic microtransaction purchases from the Division 1 as well while they were at it. There are more fast travel points to help with the general busy work fuckery. The ability to mod your skills is fantastic, although until this fully plays out I can't say if this will really provide options for unique custom builds or if it's grindy optimization work to fill the slots. One thing I spotted already is that in order to get a lot of the best mods to work, you really have to invest heavily in that direction. It seems more about optimization rather than about building hybrid builds, if you get my drift. But let's see what happens. You can shoot raccoons. I love raccoons, but I like shooting raccoons slightly more. The enemy NPC AI is definitely a step up from the Division 1, where they generally spawned in permanent fixed locations and acted very predictably. Now they're a bit more imaginative in their movement and have a wider selection of scripts. Shame we can't send the friendly NPCs off to the enemy for some training, so they don't act like fuckshit fools. Generally, they will always try and flank you, and it's always wise to try and plan for the worst when you kick off an engagement. This said, the enemy AI also regularly breaks or does incredibly daft stuff too, so it's much better but still needs some serious refinement. The streets actually feel alive now. Some of the running gun battles feel like Black Hawk Down or the shootout from Heat, and if you're engaging near friendlies, they come to your aid. There is now a genuine organic feeling to the streets and the engagements. Sometimes factions will be attacking each other and you can skirt around the periphery because they're focused on each other more than they are you. Or you can seize the initiative and attack one side or the other. The street level engagements are sometimes fucking great. I have literally had huge street battles that have raged on for ages as they chain pulled every enemy and friendly patrol passing by. There have been some serious, heavy duty and protracted street battles. You really do need to be mindful of the kill order now. With some of the NPCs having some very gnarly skills, others having ranged grenade attacks or potentially fatal melee attacks, you will have a much more pleasant time if you politely oblige by killing the most annoying fucker first. I had one battle where I didn't see the elite healer at the back. It was running around reviving all the bastards almost as fast as I was killing them. Always focus the healer, to coin a phrase. The combat environment is much richer and more varied now. There is a whole host of explosive and flammable items in areas which you can either use to your advantage or ignore and blow yourself the fuck up with. Funny how they nerfed fire extinguishers in the Division 1 because people were shooting them to take out enemies. Then in the Division 2, they plaster even worse shit everywhere. Petrol cans, electrical panels, chemistry equipment is all there for you to use, abuse or ignore at your peril. The upgrades to the shooting range are spectacular. Whoever dreamt this one up is a genius. The previous shooting range was limited, basic, not that useful and didn't necessarily give accurate information. The new shooting range is sophisticated, detailed and allows the testing of weapons to a spectacular degree. Dear fucking lord, I hope the maths is right and the readings are accurate. If the maths is wrong, it's basically the world's most expensive digital playpen. If the DPS categories and damage figures are accurate, then it's a wonderful addition. If it functions correctly, then it's the gold standard for in-game DPS and damage metering. The combination of settlements, activities and resource collection combined with the real-world friendly patrols and interactions made me feel like I was part of the ecology of the recovering city. In the Division 1 I pretty much felt like a random dude, killing other random dudes in a city that wouldn't have noticed if I was there or not. In The Division 2, I really got the feeling I was part of the process of rebuilding the city, and this was reflected in the city as it transformed. Although I would note, this is much more the case early game. Later game, let's face it, it's more of an exercise in futility, as 2 steps forward invariably results in 3 steps back by the time you log back in. This said, I previously stated that in some ways, playing survival mode in The Division 1 in many ways captured the essence of what that game should really be about. When you were on the streets, you were perpetually under threat, and looting every container and bag was essential. In a weird way, The Division 2 has managed to capture a bit of that atmosphere, and from the moment you are out in the world until the second you are back in a safe area, a momentary lapse in attention can result in you face planting into a situation that you can't get out of. Sometimes it can be brutal, and I like that. The environment is deep and worth exploring. I got to a point where if I saw a ladder, it would occur to me that I should probably investigate what's at the top of it, just in case there was something there. As a general rule, there is usually something worth snaffling anywhere you go. Some of the missions and side quests were fucking brilliant and really required you to think. Most Division quests frankly run on rails, with waypoints and quest markers. Some of the new quests were really oblique and thoughtful. So thoughtful at first I thought they were bugged. On one occasion I had to figure out how to unlock doors indirectly, and finding one SHD cache required me searching until I found a ladder on the next city block and tracking through a building and across a walkway to come down inside the locked area. I think people can handle more of this kind of stuff, frankly. Sure, it's a bit frustrating if you're trying to mindlessly power level, but if you want a legit challenge and some real satisfaction, well, I was really impressed by it. There is some real flair that has gone into the design of some of the mission buildings. Some of the mission interiors are beautiful, well crafted, and do a good job of creating their own unique atmosphere. I can't stress enough though, I'm talking about the visual design. The technical and mechanical design of the cover system in many buildings is frequently unforgivably appalling considering this is a cover-based game. Function is routinely sacrificed for aesthetics, to the crushing detriment of the game. I don't give a shit how pretty the fucking walls are, if I die, because they forgot to finish the cover in a room. Or I get snagged on a decoration. But on a purely visual and creative level, there is some great work here. I like the new system of armour and health. Armour is generally depleted when shot up, but your health will at least bubble up if you can disengage for a few seconds. It's basically a 2-tier HP system, supplemented with armour repair kits, healing/repair skills, and gear talents. It's more interesting and less prone to insta-healing to full health. The basic premise is you get it back, but a hell of a lot slower than you can lose it. Taking heavy damage means hide, get your head down, then heal. You can't tank out in the open against multiple decent targets anymore. Credit where credit is due. Ubisoft seem to have listened to some fairly specific gripes from players and introduced solutions for things that are easily done but apparently too much work to implement in The Division 1, such as being able to name your own loadout saves. This might seem insignificant, but if you really are min-maxing and trying to hone a build, just having labels like Strikers PvE is about as sensible as naming every kid in the class Bill or Mary. So yeah, while some people are griping about how complicated the UI is these days, part of that at least is due to the added quality of life changes and the greater complexity of the game. Ubisoft has also been able to restore at least some of the player profiles being accidentally deleted by the servers. I don't know the exact figures, but certainly the guy with the very high profile post about it on Reddit got his account reinstated fairly quickly. I'm not sure how quickly this occurs when Joe Nobody gets his character deleted, but at least it's been confirmed as repairable in principle, and they are at least repairing the deleted accounts, apparently. Some of the developers working on this game have done fine work. There are lots of inspired ideas, beautiful interiors and really clever improvements of the city ecology. The weapons look and sound sexy, and we got guns we hoped for like the FN P90 and the FN F2000. There's a lever action rifle, a custom Colt 1911 and a Desert Eagle. There are now full auto and single shot battle rifles that actually work. Crafting is now occasionally useful, and there are much more daily activities to busy yourself with. Without doubt, The Division 2 has a lot going on and looks impressive at face value. But that alone is never the whole story. Betty Blue looked like the perfect girlfriend on the surface. She was interesting, passionate and pretty to look at, just like The Division 2. She was also batshit crazy, psychotically violent and broken on the inside. And therein is the real issue with The Division 2. At face value, it's a fairly impressive proposition, but after 100 hours of playing the game, I can tell you this with certainty. Despite all the hype, advertising and positive promotion on YouTube and social media, this game has vastly more fucking problems than it has positive features. So why don't I reel off a short list of issues that I have with this game? Well, no discussion of the Division franchise would be considered comprehensive if we did not at least touch on the crushing tsunami of all pervasive technical problems that plague this game. Let's be honest here, currently the Division 2 runs incredibly badly for a lot of players. While some people are getting stable performance, many of us are having a fairly shit time. For me personally, it's like I'm running the game via dial-up from the fucking moon, on a pocket calculator. I have been hearing wildly divergent reports on performance. It's a given that generally we can assume the higher specs of your machine the better it should run. However, when it comes to catastrophically bad performance, it gets very random. It's been hard to read the signs through the static. I had my own personal set of problems with the game, but some people have had far worse experiences with sound, delta errors and invisible enemies. I've never had invisible enemies, not once. But then out of the blue, someone will DM me and say, "Dude, the game runs perfectly fine for me." I think there are obviously universal problems with the game, teleporting NPCs, broken terrain, etc., which I'll talk about later, but I think there is some clearly crazy shit going on based on individual conflicts with machine setups, background processes and installed software on PC. I'm not a computer science specialist, but given that most games I bought in the last few months run perfectly and the Division 1 runs about as well as it's capable of on my rig, for some reason the Division 2 runs like a bag of fuck. I would postulate that they have neither optimised the game properly nor done sufficient compatibility testing. This conclusion was perfectly illustrated by some information I received from a supporter of my channel. He explained how he had just recently bought 3 identical top shelf high-end i7 gaming rigs for him and his 2 sons. I'm talking 3 literally identical beast gaming rigs, all bought as a batch. Well, what do you know? 2 of them run the game flawlessly, but one of his sons can't get the fucking thing working properly at all. So it's not the hardware that's causing these issues. I don't claim to know what's going on, but I would suspect that the lack of proper compatibility testing and optimization is causing the game to conflict with random processes that it shouldn't be conflicting with. Because let's be realistic here, download any 6-month-old game from Steam and it will most likely run perfectly. So blaming people's drivers and hardware is a bit fucking rich in my opinion. Professional software made by grown-ups should not be giving you a blue screen of death just because one fucking driver you have is out of date. This software is not fit for purpose on a technical level. Another unfinished bit of software, by the way, was I couldn't find a way to solo missions from the options, so I had to keep trying to walk past the entrance, constantly dismissing the option screen. It was like you had to matchmake for them, so I had to cheese my way in through by running and hitting escape until I was inside. Also, despite the new Snowdrop 2 game engine, which promised to cure all the problems of the Division, you guessed it, it's a safe bet to say that everything fucked in the Division 1 is still fucked in the Division 2. Teleporting NPCs, server lag, hit registration. I'll spare you the list because you know the list if you've played the Division 1. I'm pretty sure that Snowdrop 2 is more bullshit than genuine product at this point. The audio normalisation practically qualifies as a physical assault on the user. On my first hour of the game, it was the middle of the night. I had the volume down very quiet on speakers. Then I jumped on a fixed position minigun and was stupid enough to fire it. It was so speaker poppingly loud that after about 10 bursts I got a text message from my fucking neighbour asking what the fuck was going on. The audio needs to be professionally normalised. You can't have 50 decibel spikes in the audio. There are random things like miniguns and the Snowdrop engine intro promo that are many times louder than the rest of the game, and it needs to be fixed immediately. Not all of us play with sweaty headphones on, and the people that do probably have perforated eardrums by now. The colourblind mode has been reported to be non-functional and not really a colourblind mode at all. Well, I can't test this firsthand, but I've found an entirely ignored post on the subreddit. Given Ubisoft's self-proclaimed moral virtue regarding all things inclusivity, I thought they would have been all over this like a rash. Apparently, the colourblind modes are pretty much just a blanket palette shift that might tick a box on a to-do list somewhere, but don't genuinely appear to have been tested, and some of them aren't particularly helpful for actually colourblind people. GG. An entire fucking settlement, the castle, is greyed out and has no quests or NPCs. Ubisoft are claiming it's a bug. I'm sorry, but an entire fucking settlement being missing means it's clearly unfinished and no player can advance the quest lines. Ubisoft are scratching their heads and pretending to act surprised. They didn't finish all the settlements. I'm sorry, but claiming it's just a bug doesn't make sense. It's a fucking quest hub. Why isn't the progress tracker picking up on it? To me, it looks like what it is. There is no content currently in game for the castle settlement. Look, maybe it is a bug, and I'll be proved wrong. But if it really is just a bug as they claim, why the fuck can't they patch it? If it's all finished, what's taking so long? I think they're just claiming it's a bug because they didn't finish it. Either way, makes no difference to us. An entire settlement is missing from the game content. Contact lag is also still a thing, depending on the mood of whatever server you're on. You know the drill, you see a patrol and the second you aggro them by firing a shot, they all teleport about a metre to a new location, and you get micro stutter as the hamster gets an electric shock, starts running on his wheel and the server creaks into life, reconciles the difference between where they are on your screen and where the server thinks they should be. The cover mechanics are highly problematic to an embarrassing degree. For some strange reason, lots of parts of the environment are not categorised correctly as cover. So for example, you can't crouch and take cover behind them or do a cover to cover move to them. It's a cover based shooter, where large parts of each environment are just randomly not considered fucking cover for no reason at all. And it's a massive pain in the fucking arse. Imagine taking cover behind a balcony and edging along it, then you hit a slight pillar and you can't move. You have to stand up, walk 1 metre, get back down. It's incomprehensible. It's like half of each map was built by a veteran player and the other half was built by some work experience intern that never played the game but does really pretty pastel drawings and posts them on Instagram. It's a cover-based shooter where the cover mechanics are entirely inconsistent. There are just too many key locations where someone has stuck a fancy curtain, an oil drum, or a thick ornate door frame so it looks really pretty, but stops it being legitimate environment categorised as technical cover. It's fucking moronic and at times exasperating. A game has to be consistent in its rules and mechanics, but I'm sorry, there are just too many areas where you can't take cover when you need it, and it's a cover-based fucking game. Great, the missions look very pretty, the art design looks pretty, but give me my fucking cover back. Cover is more important than pretty in the middle of a boss fight. Then there is the issue of the nonsense cover and concealment mechanics. While some walls have been categorised as not being cover, and you can't take cover behind them, fortunately for us, some other items in the environment provide exceptional compensation. For example, the tarp or cloth draped over a pedestrian barrier provides the same level of ballistic protection as reactive Chobham tank armour. Who would have thought it? A little bit of cloth can stop bullets and grenades. They should make some jackets out of that shit. Personally, I think we are at the point now where there should be at least some representation of the fact that concrete blocks and walls stop bullets, cars don't really, and nylon sheets are concealment and not cover. It's 2019. How hard would it be to work in a little barrier penetration mechanics? Are we really supposed to believe that something with the strength of a fucking laundry bag can stop an RPG? Well, apparently, until The Division 3 comes out, I suppose we are. NPCs are regularly running out of or underneath the map. I couldn't cap a control point because the last guy I had to kill magically teleported through some container lorries and was hiding outside the accessible map. In fact, both myself and my associates have experienced multiple occasions where the last NPC has dropped or passed through terrain, making completion impossible. When that shit happens after a 30-minute battle, it makes you want to punch the screen. The female enemy NPCs are properly on the balk. Most of them have male bodies, and it would appear that even the ones with female bodies have had their boobs removed. Not by me. I'm obliged to state that for legal reasons. Besides, I only take the skin for the dresses anyway. There have been loads of times I've heard a woman screaming at me, I've turned round and dropped them, but when I examine the body, it's a geezer. Did they run out of time or money to make female enemy models, or just get all the audio clips muddled up? Either way, it's a bit disconcerting to have some hairy-armed 6-foot fella shouting at me with a high-pitched female voice. Well, depends on the type of nightclub I'm in, but you get my general point. In all seriousness though, they do seem to have E-rated female bodies and made them Chinese censorship compliant and family friendly. There's not one hint of cleavage in the entire game, and trust me, I spent an unhealthy amount of time searching for boobs in The Division 2. No really, I have obsessively searched the entire game relentlessly doing a boob survey. Not even joking. The whole game has been deboobed. The Division 2 is mostly boobless. You heard it here first. The gear and weapon perks frequently don't appear to be fucking working. I have never had skilled proc for me once. It's a 25% chance, so you would think it would have happened after a couple of days. I keep getting reports from people saying the same. They're simply not convinced that all of the gear perks are actually doing anything. At the very least, the values seem to be out of whack. I can only speak for what I've seen, and that is that I have some gear perks that never worked. There have also been issues reported that scaling of stats is fucked, and some not registering at all. Nobody seems to know what is going on apart from the fact that it's all fucking balked. Personally, I just abandoned the skill talents and just bothered with armour and damage output. You know the drill. Crit, crit damage, damage to elites, pack the rest on armour and health, and kept my ass behind cover. If I could find any cover, of course. The key mapping is still broken, and it's 2019. It doesn't cross-map the keys if you rebind them. If you rebind a key for movement, say, then if that key is used for anything else elsewhere in the game, it remains bound to that function as well. So for example, I use F to walk forward. Incidentally, the same key to stop transmission. So every time I pick up a cell phone, I can't run and listen. It's been known about for 3 years. It's not fixed. It's exactly the same as the Division 1, which once again leads me to the conclusion that the Division 2 backend is pretty much identical to the Division 1. And Snowdrop 2 is just a myth told by sailors on cold winter nights to scare little children before bedtime. The dynamic weather system was both interesting and hilarious. Clearly they felt the need to compensate for the lack of New York City winter, so they tried to make the weather more dynamic. Although it was quite funny how they overcompensated. Apparently Washington DC now has some kind of mad tropical or sub-Saharan ecosystem. 1 minute it's sunny, the next minute there's a fucking monsoon. Then there is what appears to be a sandstorm. I mean, what the fuck? It's Washington. It's not fucking Libya. Calm down with the weather effects. It's like some kid is messing around with the buttons controlling Westworld. The firearms are, for want of a better term, fucking shit. Beautiful and with great sound effects, but ballistically they are moronic. The stats rode into town on a unicorn sprinkling glitter behind them. We have shit like a 357 Magnum revolver that is significantly less powerful and less accurate than 1911 pistols. Just how about no? I'm sorry, but a 357 round coming out of a 6-inch barrel is going to be more accurate and more powerful than a 45 ACP round coming out of a 5-inch barrel on a semi-auto. Please, just stop this. It's like Red Storm take a sneaking pride in being completely wrong and antagonistic about gun authenticity. Perhaps they are anti-gun, and this is their way of taking the piss and trolling gun enthusiasts. Totally fuck up the weapon stats and then laugh about it when people get triggered. Their consistent ability to stoically fuck up all the gun balancing has genuinely caused me to suspect that this is some kind of anti-gun in-joke at Red Storm. I'm not actually kidding. I've always wondered why they go out of their way to fuck up the guns as much as possible. Then the penny dropped. Red Storm is based in California. This state is famous for being incredibly anti-gun and one of the most hostile places in America to live if you own guns. I would be interested to know how many people who work on the guns in-game own or shoot guns in real life. But I'd be very interested to know if anyone working on the gun balancing in the Division has ever even fired a gun. And before any of them answer, magic wands don't count. Weapon mods are even worse. And I mean practically trying to be the exact opposite of reality. Think I'm exaggerating? Well, check this out. We have suppressors that magically reduce the speed that the weapon fires. What the fuck? And that's the thin end of the wedge. How about this? There's an optical red dot sight, you know, the things you put on guns to make them more accurate. Guess what one of the perks is? This sight reduces accuracy. I mean, what could possibly be wrong with that plan? A fucking optical gun sight that makes you miss more. Short of introducing a gun silencer that lets off a firecracker every time you pull the trigger, they could not get it more wrong, or upside down. They get this shit so consistently wrong now that I genuinely believe there is some kind of intention behind this insanity. There's also a ton of sound bugs present. Personally, I was not affected so badly. My main problem was that the game does not reliably change the gun sound effect when I use a silencer. Oh yeah, and the gender of the NPCs does not correlate with the physical model, providing I'm not misgendering the NPCs, of course. Other people are complaining about more profound dropout and large-scale sound failure. Let's just say that lots of specific sound cards don't appear to be supported properly yet. Then there is the issue of sticky, snagging and problematic terrain. I'm getting caught on environmental objects, snagged on crap and rubbish bags, coming to a dead stop when I hit overturned railings, and there are steps and shelves that are misaligned and require you to fucking jump in the air to get over them, even if they're 1 inch off the ground. Look, some of these environmental flourishes are very nice looking, but do they all have to be tripping hazards? I'm also finding the cover-based mechanics less intuitive and less smooth than the previous game. Loads of times I've tried and failed to roll out of cover. Frequently the game has just said, nope, I'm just going to jump you forward right over the ledge in front of the enemies instead. I don't know what they've changed, but in the Division 1 I could seamlessly roll out of cover in any direction I wanted and then roll right back in. Now it feels like some of the cover has sticky flypaper on it. And God forbid, if I do manage to roll out of cover to avoid that grenade, I risk rolling into a pile of bin bags and getting stuck there instead. All this shit combined with the sheer volume of terrain modelling that is not properly categorised as technical cover makes the game fucking annoying at times. I can't count the times I've been killed because I'm stuck in some way, shape or form because of the rushed and badly tested cover and terrain mechanics. Let's just explicitly spell this out. It's a cover-based shooter, where half of the fucking game environment is not properly tested and optimised for cover-based movement. A what? There are broken ladders placed right at Overwatch positions for missions, so just as you kill all the mobs and finish that long battle and you're about to go and loot the chest and cap the area and win all the prizes, you get stuck on the fucking ladder and have to Alt 4 out of the game and fail the mission. I'm sorry, but having a bunch of ladders spread across the map that force the player to hard quit out of the game is not very optimal, is it? What worries me the most about all of this is that this shit will never get fixed. Do you think they're going to send out teams of people to check every bin bag, tripping hazard, broken step and doorway to make sure the game is polished correctly? No, they won't. Especially when they have more pressing issues to deal with, like finishing the main quest line. It's just the sheer volume of stuff that needs to be fixed, on top of the fact of the sheer volume of stuff that isn't even finished. I just can't see it all getting done. On the subject of fixes, the recalibration bench is also bugged. Sometimes when using it, it will result in the entire game UI vanishing permanently, and you have to relog. One time I did this, the game decided my game file was now corrupt, and it took me an hour of fucking around and verifying the game files just to log back in. Not bad. Over an hour to fuck around recalibrating a fucking shoe. And I consider myself lucky because I figured out you can work around it by going into the map screen and hitting escape, and the UI returns. The recalibration bench is still fucked, but at least you can keep playing. It seems to be linked to certain items, but it's not my job to figure it out. The game breaking skills bug was also inexcusable. For me, playing solo and only using a pistol, it made my blood boil. I had to spend a significant part of my levelling with a turret and heal that would only stay up for 5 seconds. Then it would pack itself away and trigger a 15-second cooldown timer. It was a fuck pie. It's a skill-based combat system and the skills didn't work. Really? You imagine doing a stronghold solo with just a pistol? Seriously, think about that. Feel my pain. Imagine my fury. It's a combat game where 50% of your effectiveness is based on your skills. That's like World of Tanks forgetting to fit guns on the fucking tanks. Tetris where you can't rotate the blocks. Far Cry 5 where you can't find a pedo vendor. Talking about blood-boiling fury, the AI of the NPC reinforcements that allegedly help you fight is fucking toxic. They make the idiot JTF NPCs in Lexington look like Delta Force. They crowd your cover, block your fire, get in the fucking way. It was literally so annoying at times that I shouted at my screen. The golden moment for me was when I took cover behind a barricade, then 3 of the 4 friendly NPCs decided to cram in around me like numbskulls. I don't know, perhaps they all just needed a cuddle or something. But then a grenade gets lobbed at me and I have no room to move, and I have no choice but to get up and try and run out into the open, where I got killed. This is the AI supposedly helping you in the Division 2. I made my thoughts very clear on this matter on Twitter. Bicycle locks are everywhere. Any danger you could mix it up a bit with the bicycle locks? Why the fuck is the only lock on a door in Washington a fucking yellow bike lock? Personally, if the government starts suddenly handing out free bicycle locks to the population, I'm going to assume that some kind of apocalyptic event is on the horizon. Great idea in principle, but any chance you could consider mixing up the locks a bit before it becomes a meme? It's got to be a meme already, right? The target practice minigame was a nice idea for passing the time. However, at some of the ranges, it was nearly impossible to see all the targets properly. One wasn't illuminated at night, so 2 targets were off to the side and in shadow, and another was illuminated at night by a spotlight shining in your face. Not so helpful. I mean, just test this fucking stuff before you release a game, please. I was literally shaking my fucking head thinking, nobody came here and tested this during the night time? Really? Storage capacity for crafting materials is wrong. I spent pretty much the entire game capped on something. Virtually every time I deconstructed anything, I lost something. And sometimes I lost everything. And this isn't even endgame. This is before I was even level 30. For example, I seem to spend the whole game with only a few electronics, but hard capped on steel. They all need to be larger caps, and some need to be much larger, or the amounts rebalanced. It's pretty pointless grinding to cap out your materials if this requires wasting most of your resources to cap that one thing you have very little of. Perhaps include some kind of conversion mechanic? Their job to sort out, not mine. Another problem that a few people and myself are experiencing is with scaling and balancing. These problems manifest in 2 ways and are particularly noticeable when levelling solo. Twice whilst levelling, I just suddenly and instantaneously hit a brick wall. One minute I was totally godlike and killing everything, then suddenly everything became way too difficult. Hitting downtown west at level 17 with decent gear, but admittedly only using a pistol, I suddenly hit a difficulty barrier. I literally dinged a level and finished a mission, moved on, and suddenly I was getting gangbanged on street corners by groups of mobs with sometimes multiple veterans and elites. I had to backtrack and pretty much dumpster dive and run errands until I had significantly geared up. It was like I had activated some trigger point where the game hugely increased the difficulty I was facing. Me and a few friends have also noticed there is something strange about the enemy NPC difficulty. Not all enemies are created equally. We first noticed this at World Tier 4. The usual red shirts you see in the street go down like butter, but sometimes on certain specific missions and tasks and specific locations, the NPCs, whilst looking exactly the same, hit like fucking trucks and are total bullet sponges. In some circumstances, the NPCs seem much tougher than they should be. I even had to abandon one mission because I simply could not work out a way to deal with one purple rusher who charged at me. And that was trying with nades, a turret, my fucking noob tube. It would not die. I think the game is using some kind of on-the-fly scaling, trying to match difficulty to each player's gear, and it's totally not working, and it's totally inconsistent. The DZ apparently is pissing people off. I don't want to dwell on this topic because I'm a giant big girl's blouse and scared of the DZ. The bad men try and hurt me there, and wee runs down my leg. Look, I'm not a PvPer, but I can read forums and subreddits, even the censored ones, and the general consensus seems to be 1. It's not what was promised, and 2. A lot of players think it's a bit shit. I'll let you be the judge. The loot mechanics and drop tables are also fucked. They're based on some weird algorithm which looks at the maximum gear level of the items in your bag and creates you random drops which are roughly the same or slightly better. This algorithm, I hasten to add, doesn't seem to be working very well. Whilst it does eventually increase the overall quality of your gear, it massively overrepresents certain items and underrepresents others. Personally, I fucking hate randomised loot algorithms based on the individual player account for many reasons. You can't target loot drops, you just have to grind and pray. They are also ripe for abuse by covert throttling mechanics, and God forbid if something goes wrong for a small batch of players, you have very few options for addressing the problem. You just get the RNG excuse thrown in your face. Levelling up using only a pistol, because I'm a sadomasochist, I was painfully aware that the loot drops were balked way beyond explanations based solely on luck and RNG. I had to use the same pistol between level 14 and 20 fucking 1, because not one pistol dropped for 8 levels. Are they rationing them 3 per player? Meanwhile, I was getting more than 10 backpacks per hour. Ubisoft keep claiming it's just luck, it's just RNG. But luck does not operate with such consistently skewed statistics. Luck doesn't give you a consistent barrage of mainly 2 items hour on hour for 21 levels, backpacks and chest armour, and completely stop dropping 1 item for 2 whole days. That's not how randomisation and luck work, I'm afraid. The loot system is broken, fact. Be a good boy and go and give Borderlands their loot system back. Then come straight back home, young man, and if we catch you copying someone else's homework again, we'll have to ground you for a month. Oh yeah, and the McCracken stumble is still a thing. For those of you who don't know what it is, that's a thing where your height seems to get desynced from your lateral position when running downstairs, and you spontaneously fall down like a drunk missing a step.
You won't need flashlights for much longer.
And just in case I haven't stressed this enough, the new high-spec servers that were supposedly going to be amazing and much better than the Division 1, well, they ain't. I won't bore you with the litany of problems, but they're basically exactly like the Division 1, only a bit shittier. And frequently, I got a judder or a micro lag when I run into a new area. I've had entire missions lock up on me, and after an hour of fucking around saw a notification that the server was going to be restarted. I've had deltas, rubber banding, teleporting NPCs. When you include the game crashes and the blue screens of death I've been getting from the game software, it's safe to say this has not been the smoothest PC experience of my life. But at least I've not had to reinstall the game and Windows several times, like some players. Whenever any of the issues I've mentioned are raised publicly, they're met with the same standard official response. They're introducing regular fast patches. Yes, technically they are issuing regular server and game updates. But I'm going to contest the narrative that Ubisoft is doing great work based on the justification that they're quickly responding to problems by throwing patches out of the door on an almost daily basis. I'm going to shoot that defence down on 3 basic points. This is being sold as being ready for market, allegedly, so it should be pretty much finished at launch, not so broken as fuck that it requires fixing on an almost daily basis. 2. The now infamous skill bug took them 5 days to get, by their own words, mostly fixed. Skills are basically half of the game's combat mechanics. You don't win brownie points for fixing that, because it should work anyway, and 5 days is not a fast response. That's like clapping because someone fixed a broken oxygen supply on your brand new submarine after 5 days of fumbling around in the dark. That's not a cause for celebration. That's a cause for an inquiry. 3. The game isn't really finished yet, is it? They threw it out of the door half built, with missions, settlements and the whole of World Tier 5 missing. They decided to sell the game first and finish it later, so it's not really regular fast patches if it's just them finishing the work that we paid for and they didn't finish on time. Seriously, finishing an unfinished, badly performing product on the fly, then claiming the patches are added value is practically a fucking insult to the customers. It's deceitful. So don't give me any of that shit about Ubisoft's regularly patching the game and fixing problems because it's a live service game. The game's not fucking finished or working properly. Don't fucking clap when they try and finish the job they have been paid up front to have completed by now. I appreciate that this sounds like a litany of fucking problems read off of a shopping list, but that is the point. I don't really think people are being told enough about these problems before they decide to spend their money. Nearly all the coverage of this game that I see is resoundingly positive, enthusiastic and claiming this game is the hottest shit ever. And finally the Division has cracked it. Well, this game is a catalogue of problems. And there's not a lot of people making noise about that. Then of course, there was the thorny issue of microtransactions and the in-game kiddie gambling mini-game. Gambling for kids. Now that's something to be proud of right there, Ubisoft. Let's preface this with, let's not forget that at least twice now Ubisoft has tried to sneak absolute 100% pay-to-win mechanics into the game, then gauged the uproar and pulled back. So don't listen to any of this shit about it's not pay-to-win microtransactions. They have tried twice and backed away quietly. Do you think they're going to give up trying 2 weeks into a game that might be around for years? The TLDR on microtransactions is this. Well, it's loot crates on top of loot crates. It's a fucking pedo cash bonanza with casino graphics. You have to go via an in-game store to put your existing cosmetic items on. Free in-game cosmetics have been throttled back severely. You now need 100 key fragments to get a normal loot crate for free. You need 250 fragments to get a superior crate for free. That's about 2 days of playing for me. They claim they listened to players and got rid of dupes. This is a fucking lie. They introduced 2 tiers of loot crates instead, one with dupes and one without dupes. The in-game cosmetic items are fucking expensive. We're talking £4 for a shitty park ranger outfit. No offence if you bought it. I keep hearing fanboys saying, but you can earn everything free in-game, invariably from someone with Ubisoft's rubber-gloved puppet hand stuck firmly up their arses. But can you really? Fucking can you? Because last time I checked, they were announcing time-limited offers and gear exclusives to the Pedocash catalogue. And at the moment, it's taking me more than 10 hours play for one normal cache. So if you really want to own all the cosmetic items in the game, be prepared to grind for many, many thousands of hours and spend money too. The worst of the microtransactions are still to come. There's even blank spaces ready for them in the user interface, and they are already pretty ridiculous. Personally, I've just opted out of using cosmetic items altogether because I don't want to encourage any player to go and buy an item I'm wearing that they're unlikely ever to get for free. It's all a big fucking gambling scam, and the house always wins. Oh yeah, and you know that superior pedo cache I was grinding for 2 days? Guess what wonderful prizes I got in that 250 fragment loot crate. A fucking shoe. Next time some arse clown bleats on that you can earn everything for free in game, you might want to tell them about the fact that it took me 2 days to grind a fucking shoe. So unless everything in game means 10 to 20 shoes, they need to brace themselves for some profound disappointment. On top of the enormous list of broken stuff and the giant fuck pile of microtransactions, there's also one last thing I would like to mention, and that is, when it comes to the Division 2, I don't think the customer is being treated honestly and fairly. That's a polite way of saying, people keep fucking lying. Here are just a few examples. Ubisoft said Twitch streamers and content creators wouldn't get early access, but they were streaming before launch with keys given to them by Ubisoft. Many customers who ordered the fancy, exotic and expensive special editions did not receive them in time to play the game when it went live. They said 3 days early access. But I know people personally who did not get their physical game delivered in time to benefit from what they paid for. Ubisoft claimed to have listened to the players and got rid of dupes in loot crates when in fact they doubled down on loot crates and introduced an extra tier of pedo caches that don't have dupes. That's like swearing an oath to the judge that you will stop beating your wife, then converting to Mormonism, getting a second wife and then beating the fucking shit out of her instead. I'm sorry, but that doesn't count. You're still a wife beater, and the loot crates still have fucking dupes. Ubisoft said they needed to make the game from scratch with the new Snowdrop 2 vaporware engine because they couldn't fix the problems with the Division 1. They clearly omitted to mention the fact that they were also incapable of solving the exact same set of problems with the Division 2 and forgot to mention it. It does, however, make uneven and curved terrain, which at least gives me more interesting options for broken terrain to get stuck in. Ubisoft said we would get extra stash space with the Ultimate Edition. Then they changed their minds, but kept our money. They announced that the Division has robust anti-cheat, then slapped on a last-minute bodge job with easy anti-cheat. So far, it's only managed to ban thousands of innocent players for installing the game and giving thousands of other players error codes for failing to reconcile their files. Then there is the wholesale censorship of the subreddit and the official Division 2 Discord. It's a sinister turn. A senior moderator from the subreddit, who is notorious for his pro-Ubisoft, pro-censorship stance, has now magically become a moderator on Ubisoft's official Division 2 Discord server as well. This is a guy who has been flown abroad on holiday by Ubisoft at least twice, yet still insists that he is 100% impartial. My arse. Well, I'm getting reports that if you so much as complain on the Discord about bugs, your comments get immediately deleted. If you complain about it, you get banned. It's as simple as that. Say nice things about the Division 2 or get fucking banned. ETF members and content creators on side with Ubisoft can link their videos and promote their channels. If a civilian does it, the comment gets deleted and the player gets fucking banned. So if you're having problems with the Division 2, if the game is plagued with bugs, isn't running properly and you're scratching your little bonts, wondering why you just don't seem to see other players complaining about the same problems you're experiencing, well, there's a perfectly logical reason for that. The official forums, the Division 2 Discord, the Division 2 subreddit, and let's face it, a vast amount of the Division 2 content creators are all in Ubisoft's pocket. You are surrounded by a landscape of advertising platforms for this game, and you may not even realise it. The Division 2 is a much better game than I was expecting, from a creative point of view, but as a product, it is much less than we deserve. It's got some stunning innovations and brilliant ideas, excellent missions, and despite the mountain of problems and frustrations, up until the moment I discovered that the single player campaign wasn't finished, I actually managed to have some quality enjoyment. Certainly not £80 worth, but some. But let's take a step back here. Nearly every significant aspect of this game is to some degree or other broken as fuck. But more importantly, it's not finished. This game is getting a hall pass because all the competition, like Anthem and Fallout 76, royally fucked up in the last year. But just for a second, reset your expectations and think about this game in isolation. It's still half broken, full of bugs and crapped up terrain. It's piled full of microtransactions. Functionality is still broken. Perks, gear perks, recalibration, stability, all fucked. And they haven't even managed to finish World Tier 5 before release. Think about that. It's not even fucking finished. I'm not talking about future content and DLC episodes. I'm talking about this fucking game that I paid 80 quid for is not even finished. There are missions, a settlement and a world tier that didn't get completed in time. So they just banged it out on the shelves anyway. This is pure live service bullshit at work. If this game had been free to play, it would not have been a deal breaker for me. But as an £80 paid product, it's not even fucking finished. Let that sink in. You can't even finish the single player campaign because they didn't finish it before launch. Imagine if God of War released with 18% of the storyline missing, with some announcement about it being finished later next month. I mean, what the actual fuck? And if the best thing you can say about it is, well, it's much better than Anthem and Fallout 76, then you might want to have a word with yourself and consider how low your expectations have become. Defending this game by claiming it's better than two dog shit games is not much of a defence. If you're playing The Division 2 on a brand new high-end rig with a $1,000 graphics card and you are level 12, then your review for this game will probably be resoundingly positive. If you're playing this game on a typical PC and you're level 30, max level on gear, and you have cleared all content, you're going to have a very different perspective on this game. By that point you will have struggled relentlessly through a mountain of bugs, terrain glitches and balancing and scaling issues, and died more times than you can count because of broken shit in the game, only to get 80% through the main single player campaign to find out it's not fucking finished. If you think I'm full of shit, indulge me with this challenge. Physically write down a list of 10 most annoying bugs or issues you have encountered, and in 3 months' time go through that same list and tick off the things that they have fixed. Then decide if I'm full of shit. Most of the problems will never get fixed. I have no doubt that some brilliant people did brilliant work creating the world of The Division 2. I genuinely mean that, and there are things I have discovered in this game that are legitimately excellent and made with passion. But as a commercial video game product, in its current state, it's a bag of fuck. It's a fucking joke, and the joke is on the customer. This is not a scenario of, this is a great game, but it's got a few bugs. This is a scenario of, this is a giant fucking mountain of bugs, broken shit and unfinished crap, and buried underneath the giant overwhelming pile of fuckery and microtransactions is the seed of a brilliant game. A brilliant game that we have already paid money for, and so far we only got a fucking seed and a giant pile of crap. The Division 2 has some excellent ideas and creative brilliance, but all the problems of The Division 1 have not been fixed as was promised. The game is half broken, and the half that isn't broken is missing because they haven't finished it yet. The raids aren't ready, and all the promised DLC content is still just a dream. We haven't even seen the end of the single player campaign yet because they released the game without it. And if you think that is Game of the Year material, then you are out of your fucking mind. I'm amazed that so few people are complaining about the problems of The Division 2. Then again, perhaps they did, and they've just had their comments deleted. But for now, good luck, and happy hunting.